when our children come to us with their latest kind of issue, challenge, problem, instead of jumping in with our advice and insight and wisdom, I try to remind myself to take a deep breath, let a little pause happen in the conversation, and then say something empathetic. Hello and welcome to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast, where each week we talk about ideas for raising kids who become thriving adults. I'm your host, Audrey Monkey. Here on the podcast, I share my experiences raising 5 kids who currently range in age from 16 to 26 and working with thousands more as a summer camp director over the past 3 decades. I'm the author of Happy Campers, and I frequently do workshops with parents, teachers, and summer camp professionals about social skills, connection, and happiness, topics I researched extensively for my master's in psychology. If you want tools for raising kind, optimistic, self-reliant kids who become thriving adults, you've come to the right place. Hey, Sunshine Parenting listeners, welcome to this episode of the podcast. This month, I am focusing on a theme, and the theme is connection. So the podcast episodes and posts you'll find on Sunshine Parenting are relating to this theme of connection. I kicked it off with an awesome interview with Tina Payne Bryson about her brand new book with Dan Siegel, The Power of Showing Up. And all the resources that I'm sharing this month are meant to just serve as great ideas for helping parents and other people who care about kids really learn to connect with them and form positive relationships with kids. If you haven't picked up a copy of my book yet, it's called Happy Campers, 9 Summer Camp Secrets for Raising Kids Who Become Thriving Adults. And the very first chapter is camp secret number 1, connection comes first. So this theme of connection runs through pretty much all the work that I do, both training camp counselors and speaking with parents and writing and sharing here on the podcast. I'll be sharing quite a few ideas today, and I'm hoping that you'll just find something that you're going to try out with the kids that you work with or are parenting. I will share links to more detail on all of these ideas in the show notes for this episode. So don't worry about taking notes or anything. Just enjoy, listen, and hopefully my ideas will spur on your own great ideas or just remind you about your favorite ways to connect with kids. So probably the most basic idea and one that I keep coming back to is the importance of asking good questions. So in my interview with Dr. Thurber last week, he talked about how parents often ask questions that really don't lead to closer connection with our kids. We tend to focus on questions about their grades or their sports performance, that type of thing, when what we really need to do is ask questions that are more about them as a person. So I have this download, and it's also available as a resource in the back of my book called Questions for Connection. And in the show notes, you can link to download a copy of it if you don't already have it. But there are just some questions that can help you just think of ways to talk to your kids that do not revolve around their achievements or schoolwork or homework or that kind of thing. So things like about friendships, like asking them, what makes a really great friend, or what qualities do you look for in friends? Or even just something about like, what's a really funny joke that you like? Or what's your favorite place in the whole world? So those are just a few samples of some of the questions that I've come up with. There are hundreds more, but for camp counselors, it's really helpful to have some kind of get to know you questions for kids. But what's interesting is even with people in our own families, sometimes we forget to ask them questions about things that just aren't day-to-day stuff. I really loved finding out about Arthur Aaron's work. He has a whole study that he did about how He can help people grow closer in 45 minutes to a stranger that they've never met before by having them work through a series of 36 questions. And it just shows how you can really develop a close bond with someone when you just take the time to ask some good questions and then listen intently to their response. So this is true of our relationships with our friends, with our partners, and with our children. So I would encourage you, if there's only one thing that you take away from this episode, is to think about questions that you can ask that really help you get to know your child on a deeper level. Even things about just, dreams they've had or their favorite movie. All of these questions are ways that you tell your child that you care about them and you're interested in them as a person. So that's my first tip, is just asking good questions. And of course, as you're asking questions, the next level is asking follow-up questions. So if they share about a topic, circling back to that, even a day or a week later, just shows them that you were really listening and you really cared about what they shared. So I really like the concept of follow-up questions. And it's something when I'm talking to campers at camp about being a good friend, I share with them that asking questions is a great way to get to know people better and to get closer with your friends. And then really listening to their response and asking follow-up questions about their answers is like the next level, really, really good relationship forming habit. So asking questions, that's my first kind of connection tip to share. The next thing, and this goes along very closely with what I was just talking about, almost seems like the same thing, but it's a little bit different. And it's this idea of giving kids our full attention. I think that full attention is something that is really rare these days. We're all so distracted a lot of the time that to really give someone our full focused attention takes intention. And with our kids, it's no different than with our spouse or people we work with or our friends. We really need to do it in order to really form and keep close, positive relationships. So in order to really focus attention on our kids, I like to just share this idea of just giving 5 minutes a day. It seems like such a short amount of time, but you might look back over a week and realize that everything was so busy and you were kind of running around and you really haven't just kind of stopped, put everything else aside, and just stared at your kid, given them your full attention for a few minutes. So this is something at camp, we just say we call it a one-on-one check-in, and it's part of the counselor's job description just to touch base with each kid individually, eyeball to eyeball, once a day. At camp, it's, just a 1 or 2 minute conversation, and it's basically just a way for the counselors to just get a feel for how the kid is doing that day and what's happening. And are they doing well? Are they having fun? Are they making friends? As parents, I think since we have more time with our kids and we know them well, we should aim for more like 5 minutes of focused attention. And it might be easiest to have this be at the same time every day so that it becomes a habit for you. Bedtime is a time that for a lot of parents is a great time to just really connect and give our kids our full attention for a few minutes. It can really be, though, any time of day. It might be, with your teenager, it could be that you're just driving them home from school and you're sitting next to each other in the car and you're just hanging out. But that might not be a good time for a lot of people. So really, it doesn't matter what time of day it is, but I really encourage you to just figure out at least one time a day where you can give your kid your full attention for just a few minutes. And giving full attention means really not just not having any distractions present, but clearing your mind and being just really mindfully present with your child. Because you can be looking at someone and kind of pretending to listen, but still be worrying about an email you need to write or something else you need to do. So I just think it's so important to learn to focus and give our full attention to the person we're with. In fact, that's really one of the reasons that I picked my word for this year. If you haven't read my emails or read about it, I picked the word presence because I just want to continue building my skills at being more mindful and present just wherever I am. So it goes for when I'm with my kids, with people I work with, exercising, when I'm listening to music, even when I'm reading books. I want to be more present with them, go a little more slowly, take time to digest. So I really like this concept of presence, and I think it's really important with our kids. So that's tip number 2 for connection, is just giving kids that full, undivided, undistracted attention. My next tip, and this is something that, again, is really helpful in all our relationships, but it's remembering to do less preaching, teaching, talking, and more just empathizing and being there and showing up for our kids. I know that I tend to jump in with advice and coaching. It's just kind of part of my personality. And I've seen with my own kids, and especially as they got into adolescence, that they don't really want my advice most of the time. They really just want my empathy. And so what does this look like? It looks like when our children come to us with their latest kind of issue, challenge, problem, instead of jumping in with our advice and insight and wisdom, of which we have much because we have more experience in life than they do, instead of jumping in with that, I try to remind myself to take a deep breath, let a little pause happen in the conversation, and then say something empathetic. It might be, wow, that sounds really hard. Or, gosh, it really seems like you're having a really rough day. Or, I'm really sorry that this is such a difficult time for you. Something that just lets them know that we heard them, we're here, we're with them. I like that idea of just making sure our kids always know that we're on their team and we're with them, whether or not they've made a mistake, gotten a bad grade, having some kind of problem, whatever it is, we're still on their team and we're there to empathize with them. And I know that this is something that I just continue to need to practice. I can't even tell you how many times my kids have said the words, "You just don't understand," to me. And they need us to be there for them and to let them know that even when we don't understand exactly what they're going through, we're still there for them and we're going to empathize with them and just be there. I just feel like that's probably the key to so many relationships, is instead of offering our advice and wisdom, instead just offering our empathy and our connection and just being there for them. So that's tip number 3. My 4th tip for connecting, and this goes for whether it's just a connection between us and one child or in a family or a class, it's having a daily sharing practice. And I think I want to separate this as separate from that time of giving kids our full attention, and instead make this more about all of us sharing together and kind of practicing connecting and listening to each other. So sharing can be, again, any time of day. It could be a casual thing. It could be something that you do at dinner or breakfast or bedtime. But basically, it's just something that you share every day. A really good idea is at the end of the day to share 3 good things from your day. This is a practice that is known to increase well-being and make us all feel better. When we know that we're going to be sharing about good things that happened in our day, our brain is looking for good things. And so we'll probably have more good things that we notice come up in our day. So that's just one idea of one thing to share. You could start with one good thing from your day too. That is just as good. So sharing can be any format, and I have tons of different sharing ideas that we use at camp and we've used in my own family, and you'll be able to access all of those in the show notes. But I do encourage some kind of daily sharing habit, whether it's just between you and your child or your whole family. It really does improve your connection, and it also improves your child's communication skills because they're both sharing with others and they're listening and learning to hopefully ask follow-up questions and be more aware of what's going on with other people as well. Okay, another note. You probably know, if you're a regular listener, that I'm a huge fan of sticky notes. And it's mostly because sticky notes are something almost all of us have around in our homes and offices and use for various purposes. They can also be used to connect with our kids in many different ways. And one of the ways that is probably one of my favorites is leaving your child an encouraging sticky note on their bathroom mirror or their pillow, or they're inside their binder hidden, or in their lunch. And basically, it can really be anything encouraging or something that you enjoy about them. I think sometimes in the day-to-day life, we're so caught up in just kind of keeping things moving forward that I feel like, especially when my kids were younger, I spent a lot of time just kind of nagging them like, okay, come on, it's time to go. Or did you get your lunch? Or do you have your soccer equipment? It was so much about logistics was a lot of our conversation. So it wasn't really very connected feeling. So when you reflect maybe at the end of the day on something that happened, or you're just wanting to reach out and connect, writing a sticky note where you tell your child something you really appreciate about them. And something that's an inner quality, or what my friend Sarah calls a level 3 affirmation, is really a great way to just show your child how much you notice them, love them, and care about them. So I recommend just writing a sticky note. And, even if they don't respond or say anything about it, I guarantee everybody enjoys knowing that someone has noticed something good about them. So my final idea for connecting that I'm going to share in this episode, but again, many, many more are available in the show notes and on my website. The final thing is just, I think it's one that often we go to first, but it is a fun thing, and it's like small gifts or acts of service. So depending on your child's love language, which if you aren't familiar with that concept, everybody has ways that they feel most connected with other people. For some people, it's words of affirmation. For others, it's acts of service. So like if your spouse really likes acts of service, you might wash their car for them, or make them a special treat for dinner, or fold their laundry for them. Those are all like acts of service. Our kids also really enjoy when we speak their love language. And I would also say that almost everyone enjoys getting an act of service or a small gift. So if there's something that your child really likes, once in a while when it's not a holiday or a birthday, to just have a little note and a little item. Maybe it's a book that you want to read with them or read aloud to them, or maybe it's a little treat that something that they really love, like a special chocolate or a cookie from a special cookie store, or it really can just be anything. And then the acts of service is also really nice. So if, your child has been really busy at school and regularly has been so great about doing their chores, but you step in and do it for them and say, hey, thanks so much for working so hard at home. I wanted to give you a little lighter load today, so I folded your laundry for you. That would go a long way in just letting your child know how much you care about them. So those are just a few connection tips. Like I said, I am full of so many more. And so I am putting lots of links in the show notes for this episode, which you can find on my website at sunshine-parenting.com or by swiping up on your podcast feed, wherever you listen. So thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope you got some good connection ideas. And if you have additional ideas or resources that you'd like to share, please send me an email. You can reach me at audrey@sunshine-parenting.com, or you could also use the message voice recorder that's available on my website at sunshine-parenting.com. I really, really love to hear from listeners, so I would appreciate you taking a moment to get in touch. If anything you heard in this episode or any other episode has resonated with you, or if you've tried any of the ideas for connecting that I've shared, I'd love to hear from you. As always, you can find notes, links, and other resources related to today's conversation by visiting my website at sunshine-parenting.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for my email list so that you don't miss out on any of the great resources I have available for raising thriving kids. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd really appreciate you sharing it with a friend. Please take a moment to give Sunshine Parenting a rating or review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. Let's end with a quote from my book, Happy Campers. Positive relationships are what make a happy life. So let's help our kids build the social skills they need now to have strong friendships and positive relationships throughout their lives. I'm Audrey Monkey. Thank you for joining me for the Sunshine Parenting Podcast. Join me again next week.